Hey there, story lovers. If you're craving raw, real tales that hit you right in the feels, smash that subscribe button and join the fam. We drop heart-tugging gems like this every week to fuel your soul. If you haven't loved me for years, then watch closely. I'm walking away right now. I'm 32 years old, and my marriage just ended because of one sentence my wife said in couples therapy. 6 years together, legally married, and it all came crashing down in about 15 seconds. We've been attending marriage counseling for roughly 3 months by that point. Every Tuesday evening at 6:00, we'd make the drive downtown from our apartment building. The sessions cost us $180 each week, money that came straight out of our joint checking account. I should mention I was funding about 3/4 of that account anyway. So really, I was paying the majority of our therapy bills. She'd spend the entire car ride scrolling through social media on her phone, while I navigated through traffic and tried to make small talk that went nowhere. Things between us had felt strange for a while. She seemed emotionally distant, physically present, but mentally somewhere else entirely. I kept telling myself it was probably work-related stress, that she was going through a rough patch at her job. We'd been a couple for almost 9 years total if you count the dating period, and I honestly believed the therapy sessions were making a difference. I thought we were finally getting somewhere, finally making real progress on our issues. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Our therapist was Dr. Johnson, a middle-aged woman with an office near the waterfront district. The waiting room had abstract paintings on every wall, and one of those essential oil diffusers constantly pumping lavender scent into the air. My wife and I would always sit on opposite ends of the gray sofa, keeping as much physical distance between us as possible, even though we arrived together. That particular Tuesday started exactly like all the others before it. Dr. Johnson directed her attention toward my wife and asked how she'd been feeling about our relationship over the past week. My wife took this long, deliberate breath before responding. She said she'd been thinking quite a bit about honesty lately, about what it truly means to be completely honest with yourself and with your partner. I found myself nodding along encouragingly because this actually sounded promising. Honest communication seemed like exactly what our marriage needed at that moment. Then my wife said, "I think I stopped loving you years ago." Honestly, the words just hung there in the air between us. Dr. Johnson's pen literally froze halfway through whatever note she was writing. Even our therapist, someone who is professionally trained to maintain neutral composure, looked absolutely shocked by what she'd just heard. My wife delivered the statement so matter-of-factly, almost with a sense of relief in her voice, like she'd been carrying this secret around for so long that finally speaking it aloud felt liberating to her. I sat there trying to process what I just heard. Years ago, not recently. Not something we could potentially fix or work on together. Years. She'd stopped loving me years ago and had been pretending this entire time. I stood up from the couch. My hands were surprisingly steady as I twisted my wedding ring off my finger. I placed it carefully on the coffee table sitting between us, right next to the box of tissues that neither of us had needed yet. "Then we're done here," I said simply and reached for my jacket that was draped over the arm of the sofa. My wife's eyes went wide with surprise. "Wait, I didn't mean right now," she stammered. "When exactly did you mean?" I asked her, pulling on my jacket. "When were you planning to tell me?" She started fumbling for words. "I mean, I'm still working through these feelings. That's the whole point of therapy, isn't it?" "You don't work through loving someone," I told her flatly. "You either do or you don't. There's no middle ground here." I walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Dr. Johnson saying something about processing emotions and taking a moment to calm down. But I was already stepping into the hallway, already completely done with the entire situation. The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt like it took forever. I got to my car and just sat behind the steering wheel for a solid minute, staring at nothing. My phone started buzzing almost immediately, text after text from my wife. I didn't bother reading any of them. I drove north and stopped at the Target near the bridge. Went inside and bought the basics I'd need for at least one night away from our apartment. A toothbrush, deodorant, and a 2-pack of cheap t-shirts. Just the essentials for someone who had nowhere else to go. From the Target parking lot, I sent my wife a single text message. "Staying at Ryan's tonight? Need time to think. The responses started flooding in immediately after that. Long paragraphs about how I was completely misunderstanding what she meant, how she didn't mean it the way it sounded, how we absolutely needed to talk this through face to face. I read the first message and then stopped bothering with the rest of them. 6 years of marriage. If she'd stopped loving me years ago, that meant she'd been going through the motions for what, 2 years minimum, maybe 3 or 4. How many anniversary celebrations had she participated in with someone she felt nothing for? How many times had she told me, "I love you," purely out of habit or obligation rather than actual feeling? My brother Ryan lives across town in a 1-bedroom apartment with exposed brick walls and way too many houseplants for a single guy. He answered the door holding a beer, took one look at my face, and immediately stepped aside to let me in without asking questions. "What happened?" he asked once I was inside. I set my Target bag down on his couch. "My wife just told me in marriage therapy that she stopped loving me years ago." Ryan actually blinked several times like he was trying to process that information. "Years ago," her exact words. "And what did you do?" Took off my wedding ring, set it on the table, and walked out. Ryan handed me the beer he'd been holding and went to his fridge to grab another one for himself. We sat on his couch, and I walked him through the entire story from beginning to end. To his credit, Ryan listened without interrupting once, which is more than most people would manage. "Maybe you overreacted a bit," he suggested finally. "People say things they don't actually mean when they're feeling emotional." "She wasn't emotional, though," I said. "That's the whole thing. She was completely calm about it, almost relieved to finally say it out loud." "Still," Ryan pressed, "walking out like that. If your girlfriend told you she hadn't loved you for multiple years, would you stick around?" I asked him directly. Ryan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He took a long drink from his beer instead of answering. I continued laying it out for him. I plan literally every single date night we have, every vacation we take, every weekend activity we do together, every anniversary dinner. I manage all of our household finances. I remember birthdays for her entire family. I schedule the car maintenance appointments. I do all of it because that's what you're supposed to do when you love someone. "What does she do?" Ryan asked quietly. "She shows up," I said. "She's pleasant company when she's there, but actual partnership, genuine investment in the relationship. I honestly can't remember the last time she did something that showed she was thinking about my needs instead of just her own." "So, what's your plan now?" Ryan wanted to know. "Treat her exactly the way she's been treating me," I said. "Like a roommate, friendly, polite, nothing more." "That's going to completely blow up your marriage, man." "It already blew up," I told him. "She just doesn't like that I'm not pretending otherwise anymore." I ended up staying awake late into the night on Ryan's couch, staring up at his ceiling and thinking about everything. My wife sent 17 more text messages over the course of the evening. I finally read through all of them around midnight. They basically said the same thing over and over in slightly different words. She didn't mean it like that. I was being too extreme in my reaction. We really needed to talk about this face to face. Please come home. Not a single message actually said she'd been wrong about not loving me anymore. She was only saying she'd been wrong to speak that truth out loud. Friday morning, I woke up to 3 missed phone calls from her. I texted back, "I'm going to stay at Ryan's place for a while." Her response came through within seconds. "For how long?" "Until we figure out the logistics." "Logistics of what? Of you living with someone you don't love," I typed back. My phone immediately started ringing. I sent the call to voicemail. She called again, voicemail again, a third time. Finally, she gave up and texted instead. "You're being completely unfair." I didn't bother responding to that one. At work that day, I sat at my desk and opened up a detailed spreadsheet. I started listing every single subscription service we shared, every recurring charge that came out of our joint account. Spotify Premium was costing us $22 monthly, split between both of our profiles. I downgraded to an individual account for just myself. Netflix, same exact thing. I removed her user profile entirely. Her Audible subscription that I'd been paying for every month, canceled completely. Amazon Prime household account. I removed her access. Within an hour, I got a notification that my credit card had been removed from her Apple Pay. She definitely noticed what I was doing. Her text message came through moments later. "Why did you remove me from Netflix?" "Husbands pay for their wives' entertainment," I replied. "We're not in that kind of relationship anymore." "You're being absolutely ridiculous." "I'm being accurate," I typed back. Next on my list, I called our favorite restaurant where we had a standing reservation. We'd been going there every third Saturday of the month for the past 6 years straight. It was our tradition. The hostess who answered the phone actually knew us both by name. "Hi, this is Alex Thompson," I said. "I need to cancel my standing reservation." "Oh no," she said, sounding genuinely concerned. "Is everything all right?" "Just a change of plans," I told her. "But thank you for everything over the years." I hung up before she could ask any follow-up questions. By lunchtime that Friday, I'd managed to save myself approximately $85 per month in various subscription services. That worked out to over $1,000 annually on entertainment and services for someone who openly admitted she didn't love me anymore. It felt practical and necessary. Saturday morning, I drove to the bank branch on the main street downtown. The personal banker there was a woman named Karen who'd actually helped us open our joint account about 4 years earlier. She smiled when she recognized me walking in. "Mr. Thompson," she said warmly, "what can I help you with today?" "I need to open a separate checking account," I told her. Her smile faltered just slightly. "Of course. Is this personal or joint?" "Personal." The whole process took about 30 minutes to complete. I had my direct deposit from work changed over to the new account immediately. The joint account would still receive a deposit from me going forward, but only for my exact half of our fixed bills and nothing more. Rent, utilities, internet service. I calculated it down to the dollar, exactly $1,650 per month. Previously, I'd been depositing $4,200 monthly into that joint account. That evening at Ryan's apartment, I created an even more detailed financial spreadsheet covering the entire past year. Every single expense categorized and tallied up precisely. Date nights had been averaging around $400 per month. Groceries totaled about $600 monthly, though my wife only contributed roughly $150 of that. Her car payment, which I'd been covering entirely for several months because she'd been between jobs, was $380 monthly. Gifts for her family members that I'd been purchasing averaged out to about $150 per month. I'd been subsidizing her entire lifestyle to the tune of approximately $2,500 every single month. That was $30,600 per year for someone who admitted she hadn't actually loved me in years. I composed an email to her with the subject line, "Updated Financial Arrangement." In the body of the email, I wrote, "Per our conversation this past Thursday, I'm adjusting my financial support to accurately reflect our actual relationship status. I've deposited my share of fixed expenses into the joint account. All other expenses are now completely separate." I attached the detailed spreadsheet and hit send. She called me immediately before I'd even closed my laptop. I let the phone ring exactly twice before answering. "What the hell is this, Alex?" she demanded. "A budget breakdown." "I thought you'd appreciate the clarity," I said calmly. "You're cutting me off financially. Do you understand that?" "I'm treating you like a roommate," I explained. "Roommates split bills 50-50. That's exactly what I'm doing now." "I can't afford that," she said, and I could hear the panic in her voice. "Then I suggest you find a roommate who can subsidize you," I told her. "I'm not available for that position anymore." "You're being incredibly cruel right now. You stopped loving me years ago, but still expected me to keep funding your entire lifestyle," I said. "How exactly is that not cruel?" There was complete silence on the other end of the line for several long seconds. "Then that's not what I meant." "What did you mean then?" More silence. She had no answer. "Come back to this conversation when you can actually answer that question," I said and ended the call. Sunday morning, my wife showed up unannounced at Ryan's apartment building. I heard her voice out in the hallway, heard Ryan trying to run interference and keep her from just barging in. I came out of the bathroom to find her standing in the doorway of the apartment. "You need to call before coming here," I said immediately. "This is absolutely crazy, Alex," she said, her voice rising. "We're married." "Are we?" I asked. "Because this past Thursday, you said you stopped loving me years ago." "I was just having a bad day," she cried. "A bad day where you accidentally told the truth," I said flatly. Her eyes started filling with tears. "Please just come home." "I need you to be completely honest with me about something," I said. "When exactly did you stop loving me?" She hesitated. That hesitation alone told me absolutely everything I needed to know. "Maybe I didn't mean it in that exact way," she finally managed to say. "So you're lying now?" I asked. "Or were you lying on Thursday? Which is it?" "I don't know," she said, tears now streaming down her face. "I'm confused about everything." "Come back when you're not confused," I told her. "Come back when you can tell me the actual truth about when you stopped, why you stayed anyway, and what you genuinely want now." She left without another word. Ryan stood in his kitchen looking extremely uncomfortable about the whole situation. "You're really going through with this?" he asked me. "I really am," I confirmed. Monday morning at work, my colleague Mike stopped by my desk. We'd worked together for about 5 years, long enough that he could tell when something significant was different about me. "You look different," he said, leaning against the cubicle divider. "I can't quite put my finger on it." "Different how?" I asked. "I don't know exactly. Lighter somehow. You seemed stressed out for months and now you just seem calm." I minimized the spreadsheet I'd been working on. "My wife and I are separating." "Oh man," Mike said sympathetically. "I'm really sorry, that's incredibly rough." "Is it though?" I said. "I feel like I should be way more upset than I actually am." Mike pulled over a chair and sat down. "Want to talk about it?" I found myself explaining the entire situation to him. The therapy session revelation. My decision to stop performing in a relationship that didn't actually exist anymore. Mike listened, without offering the usual empty platitudes people give in these situations. "So basically, she wanted all the husband benefits without actually being a wife," he said when I'd finished. "Is that about right?" "That's exactly it," I agreed. "And now she's shocked that you stopped providing those benefits." "Furious, actually." Mike actually laughed at that. "Good for you, man. Seriously, I've watched you run yourself into the ground trying to make her happy for years now. Maybe it's finally time to make yourself happy instead." That conversation stuck with me throughout the entire day. I'd gotten so accustomed to people telling me that relationships require work, that marriage is hard, that I needed to try harder and put in more effort. Nobody had ever once suggested that maybe the problem wasn't my effort level at all. That same Monday afternoon, my wife texted me about a work crisis she was dealing with. Her big presentation to a major client had gone badly, and she was spiraling emotionally. The old version of me would have called her immediately, would have spent at least an hour on the phone listening and providing encouragement, would have ordered delivery from her favorite Thai restaurant and had it sent to her office, would have texted her throughout the rest of the afternoon, reminding her how capable and talented she was. Instead, I texted back, "Sorry to hear that. I'm sure you'll figure it out." Her response came quickly. "That's it. That's all you're going to say." "What else would you like me to say?" I asked. "Usually you make me feel better about things. That's what husbands do." "I'm unclear about what we are right now," I typed back. "You're being cruel." "I'm being appropriate," I corrected. "You don't love me. Why would you want comfort from someone you don't love?" No response for over 3 hours after that. Then finally, "I really needed you today." "You have friends, family, and a therapist," I replied. "Use those resources." Monday evening was supposed to be our regular date night. We'd had standing Monday dinners for years, taking turns choosing the restaurant. My wife made a reservation at this oyster place we both loved, our favorite spot. She texted me all the details at 5:00 p.m. I didn't respond at all. At 7:00 p.m., she sent me a photo. She was sitting alone at a table set for two, the restaurant busy and crowded around her. The caption read, "I'm here, please." I texted back, "Date nights are for people in romantic relationships." "We're married," she replied. "Legally, yes. Emotionally, apparently not." She kept sending photos throughout the evening. The oysters we always ordered and shared. The specific wine we always got. At 9:00 p.m., she texted, "I sat here for 2 hours waiting for you." "I never said I was coming," I pointed out. "You made assumptions." "What happened to you?" she wrote back. "You're not the man I married." "You didn't love the man you married," I replied. "So I'm becoming someone else." Tuesday at lunch, I agreed to meet my wife's best friend, Lisa, at a coffee shop downtown. She'd texted asking to talk, and I figured I owed her at least that courtesy since we'd known each other for years. Lisa got straight to the point as soon as we sat down. "My wife is absolutely devastated. She says you abandoned her." "What exactly did she tell you?" I asked. "That she was being vulnerable in therapy, and you just walked out on her." "Did she happen to mention what she actually said?" "That she was working through some doubts about the relationship." "She said she stopped loving me years ago," I corrected. "Not doubts, not struggling, stopped loving me years ago." Lisa's coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. "Years ago." She said it like it was an established fact she'd accepted a long time ago. "Maybe she was exaggerating in the moment," Lisa suggested weakly. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my wife's text messages from the past several days. "Look at her messages to me. Read them. She's never once disputed what she actually said. She's only complained about the consequences of saying it." Lisa read through the messages, and I watched her expression gradually shift as she did. "She told me you were being completely unreasonable about everything." "What do you think would be reasonable?" I asked. "Pretending she loves me, continuing to fund her entire lifestyle while she figures out if she wants to stay with someone she doesn't love." "What do you want from her?" Lisa asked. "I want honesty about when she stopped, why she stayed, and what she actually wants now," I said. "Until she can give me that, I'm treating her exactly the way she's been treating me, like someone she coexists with. Nothing more than that." Lisa set my phone down on the table. "And if she says she does love you now, then she's lying now, or was lying Thursday. Either way, I can't trust it anymore." That same afternoon, I drove out to the park where my wife and I used to go jogging together every Sunday morning back when we first started dating. We hadn't been there in over 2 years. She'd stopped wanting to go, and I'd eventually stopped suggesting it. I was walking the path around the lake when I heard someone call my name. It was Chris, a friend from college I probably hadn't seen in 3 years. He was stretching near the water. "Alex Thompson," he said, grinning. "Man, how long has it been?" We caught up while walking the loop together. He just moved back to the city from out of state, was working in tech, all the usual stuff. Eventually, he asked about my wife. "We're splitting up," I told him. "Seriously, you two always seem so solid." "She told me in marriage counseling that she stopped loving me years ago." Chris actually stopped walking completely. Years ago, and she just stayed apparently. "So, what did you do?" "Took off my ring and left the session. Haven't really looked back since." He started laughing, then caught himself. "Sorry, that's not funny, but honestly, good for you. That takes real guts." "It feels more like basic common sense," I said. "Most people don't have common sense when it comes to relationships," Chris said as we resumed walking. "They stay way past the expiration date, keep pouring effort into something that's already empty. I did that with my ex for 3 years straight. Wish I'd had your clarity back then." We exchanged phone numbers before going our separate ways. He texted me later that evening. "Seriously, though, proud of you for choosing yourself." It was the first time anyone had framed it that way. Not as me abandoning my wife, but as me choosing myself and my own well-being. Wednesday evening, My wife insisted we meet at our apartment to really talk about everything. I agreed, mostly because we'd have to face each other at some point anyway. I arrived at 7:00 p.m. to find that she'd prepared extensively. Her makeup was done perfectly. She was wearing the dress I used to always compliment her on. There was wine breathing on the kitchen counter, and something was cooking that smelled exactly like my favorite pasta dish. I sat at the kitchen counter, but didn't touch the wine glass she poured for me. "I need you to understand what I actually meant on Thursday," she started. "I'm listening," I said. "I was trying to explain that our marriage has become comfortable, but not passionate anymore. I wanted to work on rekindling things between us by saying you stopped loving me years ago. That came out completely wrong. What should you have said instead, that I miss feeling in love with me specifically?" I asked, or just in general. She hesitated again, another answer without actual words. "Let me ask you something," I said. "When did you stop doing the things that showed you loved me?" "What do you mean?" "When did you stop initiating plans? When did you stop checking in during my difficult days? When did you stop suggesting activities you thought I'd enjoy? When did you stop asking about my goals, my dreams, my frustrations?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she said defensively. "Exactly," I said. "You don't know because you stopped doing those things so long ago that you forgot they existed at all. I've been busy with work and—" I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar app. I planned every single date night, every weekend activity, every vacation, every anniversary celebration. "What have you planned in the last year?" She stared at my screen. The calendar was color-coded with every event I'd organized marked in blue. Every event she'd organized there was no second color because there were no events. "I thought you enjoyed handling all of that," she said quietly. "I did it because I loved you," I said. "But you weren't doing equivalent things because—" I let the sentence hang there between us. "That's not fair," she protested. "What's not fair is expecting me to love you like a husband when you don't love me like a wife." "I do love you," she insisted. "Since Thursday?" I asked. "Or did that love conveniently reappear right around the time the Netflix stopped working?" She actually flinched at that. "I need to know something," I said, "and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay," she whispered. "If I had reacted differently on Thursday, if I had cried and begged you to love me again and promised to change everything about myself, would you still respect me?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Would you have felt more secure in the marriage or less attracted to me?" And I pressed. The silence stretched out for a long time. I had my answer without her saying a single word. "You don't have to say it," I told her. "Your silence already did." "It's not that simple," she tried. "It really is," I said. "You wanted me to fight for you, to prove my love was bigger than your rejection. I wanted you to show you cared by accepting that I'm going through something difficult," she said. "And while you go through something, I'm supposed to keep being the perfect husband to someone who isn't being a wife at all." I stood up to leave. "Where are you going?" she asked desperately. "Back to Ryan's place. This conversation is finished." "Alex, please, please." "What?" I interrupted. "Please keep funding your life. Please keep planning everything. Please keep loving you while you figure out if you feel like loving me back." I left the apartment, left the pasta on the stove, left the wine on the counter, left her standing in the kitchen of a place I'd been paying more than my share of rent on for 6 years straight. Thursday morning, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up on the third ring. "Alex, this is Dr. Johnson." I sat up straighter on Ryan's couch. Therapists didn't usually call individual clients outside of sessions. "Hi, Dr. Johnson," I said. "I wanted to check in with you after what happened last week. That was a significant moment." "She told me the truth," I said simply. "I responded to the truth." "I've spoken with your wife since then. She claimed she misspoke in that moment." "Do you believe her?" There was a long pause on the line. "I believe she's afraid of the consequences of what she said. That's different from having said something she didn't actually mean." Why are you telling me this? Because in my professional opinion, Alex, your wife has been emotionally checked out of this marriage for quite a while now. She may not have fully realized how far gone she was until she spoke it out loud in that session. I appreciate your honesty, I said. For what it's worth, your reaction showed remarkable self-respect, Dr. Johnson said. Many people in your position would have begged and pleaded. I did that for the first 3 months of counseling, I told her. Begging doesn't work on someone who's already emotionally gone. After we hung up, I sat there in Ryan's apartment thinking about those 3 months of therapy. How I'd been the one reading books about communication techniques, taking detailed notes after each session, practicing active listening skills at home. My wife had just shown up, sat on the couch, and waited for the hour to be over each week. That evening, my wife texted asking to meet at the apartment again. Said she had something really important to tell me. I drove over at 8:00 p.m., half expecting another carefully staged performance. Instead, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with no makeup on, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked completely exhausted. I need to tell you the actual truth, she said. The whole truth this time. I sat down across from her and waited silently. About 2 years ago, I started feeling like we were just roommates, she began. Like all the excitement was gone from our relationship. Okay, I said. I talked to Lisa about it. She told me that long marriages go through different phases, that what I was feeling was normal and would pass. And I believed her, but it never got better. I stopped feeling anything romantic for you at all. But you stayed anyway. You were so good to me, she said, tears streaming down her face now. And our life was comfortable, and I didn't want to lose all of that. I thought maybe the feelings would come back eventually, and they didn't. No, they just didn't. Why did you agree to start counseling 3 months ago? Because you asked me to, she said. And I thought maybe a therapist could fix whatever was broken inside me, help me figure out why I couldn't love someone who was so perfect for me. I'm not perfect for you, I said. I'm perfect for someone who actually wants to love me back. She cried harder. I thought if I said it out loud in therapy, maybe you'd, I don't know, prove me wrong somehow, make me feel something again. You wanted me to fight for you. I wanted to feel something again, she said. But then you just left. You didn't fight, didn't argue, didn't try to change my mind. You just accepted what I said and walked away. What should I have done instead? I don't know, she admitted, something other than this coldness. This isn't coldness, Emily, I said. This is self-preservation. You stopped loving me 2 years ago, but wanted me to keep loving you hard enough for both of us. I didn't know what else to do, she whispered. You could have been honest with me 2 years ago, I said. You could have left. Instead, you let me invest 2 more years into someone who wasn't invested in me at all. The silence that followed felt absolutely final. I'm filing for divorce, I said clearly. Please don't, she begged. I think I'm starting to feel something again. You're feeling loss, I corrected. That's different from love. How do you know? Because you didn't miss me until I stopped serving you, I said. When I canceled the subscriptions, you complained. When I split the finances, you were angry. When I stopped providing emotional support, you called me cruel. You never once said you missed me as a person. You missed what I did for you. She went completely quiet. You missed what I did for you. I'm not who I actually am, I repeated. What do you want from me? She asked in a small voice. Nothing, I said. That's the entire point. I finally want nothing from you at all. So that's it. 8 years together and you just walk away. You walked away 2 years ago, I said, standing up. You just didn't bother telling me. She stayed sitting at the table with her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she said through her tears. I'm really, truly sorry. I believe that you're sorry, I said, but I'm still done. I picked up my wedding ring from where she'd placed it back on the bedroom dresser and put it in my pocket. This time, I'd be returning it to the jeweler for good. Friday afternoon, I rented a small moving truck and drove back to the apartment during work hours when I knew she'd be gone. I moved systematically through the rooms, taking only what was truly mine. The bookshelf I'd owned before we even met. My entire record collection, the vintage turntable, all my clothes and personal items, my laptop and work equipment, the camping gear I'd had since college days. I left her the bed because there were too many memories attached to it that I didn't want anymore. Left the couch, the kitchen table, most of the dishes and cookware. I took the expensive coffee maker 'cause I'd been the one who bought it, but left the French press she preferred using. On the kitchen counter, I left a simple note. Divorce papers will be sent to you next week. I've paid my half of the rent through the end of the lease term. After that, the apartment is entirely your responsibility. Take care of yourself. I did one final walk through all the empty rooms. Should have felt sad somehow, but instead I just felt lighter than I had in years. No more managing her emotions for her. No more planning her happiness. No more funding her comfortable lifestyle while she decided whether I was worth loving back. Back at Ryan's apartment, we unloaded all my boxes in silence. When everything was inside, Ryan handed me a beer from his fridge. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I've been holding my breath underwater for 2 years and finally came up for air," I said. The next morning, I drove to the jewelry store where I'd purchased her engagement ring 7 years earlier. The same elderly man was still behind the counter, carefully polishing something with a soft cloth. He recognized me immediately. "Thompson," he said with a smile that faded when he saw my expression. "What can I do for you today?" I pulled out my wedding band and set it on the counter. "I'd like to return this if that's possible." His face fell as he picked up the ring and examined it closely. "I'm very sorry to hear that. This is always a difficult thing." "It's the right thing, though," I said. "May I ask what happened? You don't have to answer if you'd prefer not to." "She stopped loving me years ago," I told him. "I only just found out last week." He set the ring down carefully on the counter between us. "I've been doing this job for over 40 years now. I've sold thousands of rings and I've taken back hundreds of them. You know what I've learned in all that time?" I shook my head. "The people who come back angry and bitter, wanting to pawn their rings for cash out of pure spite, they usually end up regretting it later," he said. "But the people who come back clear-eyed and at peace with their decision, they never come back a second time with regrets. They move forward." "Which category do I fall into?" I asked. "You tell me," he said gently. I thought about it carefully. "Clear-eyed." He smiled at that. "Then you're absolutely doing the right thing. I hope your next purchase here is made with more certainty." "If there even is a next time," I said. "There will be," he said confidently. "Men like you don't stay single for very long." I left the jewelry store and stopped at a coffee shop nearby. Got an Americano and sat outside in the morning sunlight just watching people walk past. Couples holding hands, families with baby strollers, individuals completely lost in their own thoughts, all of them carrying their own private stories of love and loss. My phone buzzed with another text from my wife. "Can we please talk about this?" I put my phone in my pocket without responding. 3 months passed. I found my own place across town, just a simple one-bedroom apartment, but it was entirely mine. I decorated it exactly the way I wanted, minimalist and clean, focused on displaying my music collection and photography equipment. No compromises about whether things matched or fit someone else's aesthetic preferences. I was saving over $2,000 every single month. Now, my bank account had a comfortable cushion for the first time in years. I joined a rock climbing gym and started taking photography classes on Saturday mornings. These were things I talked about doing for literal years, but never had time for 'cause our weekends were always dedicated to whatever my wife wanted to do. My wife still texted occasionally with messages like, "How are you?" and "I miss you," and "Can we talk?" I responded briefly when I felt like it or not at all. The divorce was proceeding smoothly through the legal system. Uncontested, no children involved, no shared property to fight over. A clean split. She asked to meet up for closure. I agreed to coffee at a neutral cafe. She looked completely different when she walked in. Thinner, tired, her hair cut short, and a new style. We sat down with our drinks. I wanted to tell you that I understand now, she said. I understand why you left and what I did wrong. I'm glad you're getting clarity, I said neutrally. I've been doing therapy on my own. Dr. Johnson helped me see that I was taking you completely for granted. That's good that you're working on yourself. Is there any chance at all for us? She asked, her eyes filling with tears. No, I said simply. She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes. I thought that's what you'd say. You seem different now, happy. I am happy, I confirmed. Do you hate me? She asked in a small voice. No, I said honestly. I just don't want to be married to you anymore. We finished our coffee, mostly in silence. After that, she left first, and I sat there for a while longer, just watching people walk by outside the window, feeling nothing but peace about my decision. A week later, at the climbing gym, someone approached me while I was reviewing photos I'd taken of other climbers on the walls. I'd been working on capturing that moment of movement and decision-making mid-climb. These are really impressive, she said, looking at my camera screen. Do you do this professionally? Just as a hobby, I told her. I'm Alex. I'm Sarah, she said, holding out her hand. Nice to meet you. We ended up talking for over an hour after we'd both finished climbing. She was a software developer, 29 years old, relatively new to the city. She suggested getting coffee sometime, and I found myself saying yes immediately. Our first date was simple, just coffee at a local place. But Sarah asked detailed questions about my interests and actually listened carefully to my answers. She remembered specific details I'd mentioned and followed up on them in later conversations. On our second date, she'd planned an entire hike at a trail she'd researched specifically, because she thought I'd enjoy photographing it based on things I'd told her about my style. On our third date, Sarah brought me a book about landscape photography that she'd found at an independent bookstore. I was there browsing for work stuff and saw this and immediately thought of you, she said. I realized I'd completely forgotten what genuine reciprocation felt like in a relationship. A few weeks later, I was out at the park on an early Sunday morning with my camera equipment. I'd woken up before dawn, grabbed coffee, and driven to the conservatory gardens just as the sun was starting to come up. The morning light was absolutely perfect, golden and sharp. I was sitting near the water feature, adjusting my camera lens, when I found myself thinking about my ex-wife for the first time in days. Not with anger or regret, though, but with something much closer to gratitude. She'd given me the truth, even if she hadn't initially meant to give it in that way. That painful truth had freed me from spending additional years trapped in a completely one-sided marriage where I was the only one actually invested. A woman jogging past on the path slowed down to watch me work. Beautiful morning for photography, she called out. Best time of day for it, I agreed. You look genuinely happy, she said. Not many people look that happy at 6:00 in the morning. I am happy, I told her truthfully. She smiled and continued on her morning run. I took another dozen photos as the sun climbed higher in the sky, then carefully packed up all my gear and headed back to my apartment, made myself a proper breakfast, called Ryan to plan a weekend hiking trip for next month. My phone rang once, my ex-wife calling, and I sent it straight to voicemail without hesitation. Later that afternoon, Sarah texted me about a new restaurant she'd discovered that she wanted to try together. I said yes immediately, and we made plans. Have you ever been married before? Sarah asked over dinner that evening. Yes, I said. It ended fairly recently. Bad breakup. Honest breakup, I said. She stopped loving me years ago, and I stopped pretending that was okay. That must have been painful, Sarah said sympathetically. It was, I admitted, but staying in that situation would have hurt far more in the long run. I respect that, Sarah said, meeting my eyes. You knew your worth and acted on it. Something shifted in my chest when she said that. Here was someone who saw my self-respect as actual strength rather than coldness or cruelty. That night, back in my apartment, I thought about everything I'd learned over the past few months. My ex-wife had inadvertently taught me that love has to be an action, not just an empty feeling or word. That when someone genuinely stops choosing you every day, they've already left emotionally, even if they're still physically present. That self-respect isn't cruelty or coldness. It's basic survival. I'd spent time mourning what I thought I had, not what I'd actually had in reality. My phone buzzed with Sarah, sending me a funny meme about terrible climbing form. I smiled and replied immediately. I wasn't sitting around waiting to be loved anymore by someone who couldn't do it. I was finally living like someone who knew his own worth.